Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Okay, this video is a one-story video where we've got an absolute powerhouse from the subreddit Pro Revenge with 2 full updates. We get the whole story start to finish, complete with closure, and trust me, this one builds and builds until the payoff hits like a freight train. If you want to skip between the different parts of the video, just use the timestamps down below. Now let's get started with this awesome story. This post is from the subreddit Pro Revenge, and it's by a user we'll call Camille. My parents called me a dropout and told everyone to look at your sister. I secretly built a $71 million company while she wore an $18,000 gown. Now, they're begging. For 26 years, I was the family's disappointment. The dropout. The sister who answered phones for a living. The one who couldn't finish anything. Meanwhile, my older sister Victoria Reyes climbed the corporate ladder to become a director of operations at a consulting firm in Atlanta. She fulfilled every expectation my parents ever had. MBA from Emory, making $195,000 a year, engaged to Preston Whitfield III, whose family managed a network of private medical practices across Georgia. My name is Camille Reyes, and this is what happened when 26 years of being invisible finally caught up with my family. Mom shared pictures of Victoria and Preston's penthouse in Buckhead to basically everyone she encountered. Meanwhile, she described my 750 square foot apartment in East Atlanta Village as Camille's bohemian phase. Her exact words were, "At her age, that's alarming." After 2 years, I left college because I couldn't manage the workload anymore. At least that's the version Dad told people, his voice always heavy with disappointment. They never asked for the real story, not once. Growing up, there were 2 sets of rules in our house, Victoria's rules and everybody else's rules. Victoria could quit her piano lessons, her volleyball team, and her internship at a law firm because she was finding herself. I had to stick with every single thing I started because commitment builds character. Victoria pulled average grades her entire life, and every report card got treated like she'd won a national award. Dinner out. Congratulations all around. I pulled straight A's, and the most I ever got was a nod. Once I made honor roll for the 5th straight semester, and Mom's response was, "Well, you're supposed to do well. Thanks, Mom. Real motivating." Holidays were always the Victoria show. Her pile of presents could fill a closet. I'd get maybe 3 or 4 things. Practical stuff. Things nobody actually wants to unwrap on Christmas morning. One year I got a desk organizer, while Victoria opened a new laptop, a designer bag, and concert tickets. Mom's explanation: Victoria needed more because she appreciates things differently. I still don't know what that means. I'm pretty sure I would have appreciated a laptop just fine. My dad was Victoria's biggest fan. Every average thing she accomplished got celebrated like it was historic. Victoria got accepted to Emory's MBA program. Dad threw a party. When I graduated top of my class from UGA with a full academic scholarship, Dad patted my shoulder and said, "Good job," before asking if I'd seen Victoria's new office photos. I had a full ride to a major state university, and my dad was more interested in furniture. Here's the thing about being the kid nobody notices. You learn to stop expecting things. You stop hoping your parents show up. You stop waiting for someone to recognize what you did. You just put your head down and handle it yourself because nobody else is going to. That's what I did. Worked jobs all through high school, saved every cent, counted down the days until I could leave. Every family gathering followed the same structure. Victoria would talk about her latest project management wins, her networking events, her consulting firm's biggest clients. Preston would discuss their relationships with county officials, their country club membership, and the Whitfield Family Foundation. And when I brought up anything about my own life, Mom would quickly change the subject. "That's nice, Camille. Victoria, tell everyone about your award." The award. That was always the conversation stopper. Some rising star in Southeast operations, recognition from an industry journal. Victoria had 3 copies framed and placed in the most visible spots she could find. Her office, her penthouse, and the living room of our parents' home. My photos weren't anywhere in my parents' house. I found them once, stuffed in a drawer in the guest bedroom, while I was looking for extra blankets. Planning for the wedding started 18 months before the big day. Victoria wanted perfection. A ceremony at the Piedmont Grand, $310,000 total. 300 guests, a celebrity wedding planner, and everything top shelf. The Whitfields were contributing $175,000, and my parents were covering the rest. Mom and Dad refinanced their home to make it happen. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime event," Mom said, with this gleam in her eyes that I'd never once seen directed at anything I'd done. "Victoria deserves the wedding of her dreams." I was originally a bridesmaid. Then, when Victoria decided to fill the wedding party exclusively with her consulting firm colleagues for the optics, I got demoted to regular guest. Then I got demoted again. 3 weeks before the wedding, my phone buzzed while I was in my apartment, going over quarterly numbers on my laptop. "We need to discuss the wedding, Camille. Preston's parents have been asking about our family, and they're very image conscious. I think it would be better if you didn't attend. You'd feel more comfortable anyway." I stared at the message for a long time. Then the follow-up. "I hope you understand, these aren't really your kind of people." I read it 3 times. Let the words settle like stones dropped in water. I was being uninvited from my own sister's wedding. I typed back 1 word. "Understood." My phone rang immediately. Victoria. "Camille, please don't be dramatic about this." "I'm not being dramatic. You asked me not to come, I'm not coming." The Whitfields have connections to everyone in Atlanta. Preston's mother sits on the board of the High Museum, and his father golfs with the lieutenant governor. They have certain expectations. She paused. "You answer phones for a living, Camille. You live in East Atlanta and drive a Civic. Preston's uncle runs a private equity firm, and his cousin is a state senator. Can you see how this might be awkward? Perfectly clear. Don't be like that. We'll do a family dinner after the wedding once everything settles down." I hung up and sat in the quiet of my apartment. Looking around at my simple furniture, my tiny kitchen, and my 1 bathroom that Victoria had once described as aggressively small. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the Georgia Governor's Business Awards calendar. April 15th, the same evening as Victoria's wedding. I had originally planned to skip the awards ceremony to attend the wedding. Not anymore. Here's what my family didn't know. What none of them had bothered to ask about in the 4 years since I dropped out. I didn't leave school because the work was too hard. I left because I'd built something that couldn't wait. During my sophomore year at UGA, I noticed something. Every small restaurant and cafe I talked to, every local caterer and bakery, every neighborhood food truck had the same problem. They couldn't access the same quality wholesale ingredients and supplies that the big chain restaurants could. The affordable distributors had massive minimum orders that a 30-seat restaurant couldn't meet. The premium suppliers wouldn't return their calls. Good alternatives ran $40,000 to $160,000 a year in contracts that made 0 cents for a small operation. So I built something in between. A wholesale distribution network that aggregated orders from small food businesses, negotiated bulk pricing from regional suppliers, and managed the delivery operations. Small restaurants got access to the same quality ingredients as the big chains at prices that actually made sense. Suppliers got guaranteed volume they could count on. Everybody won. I called it Greenleaf Supply. Launched in 2020. Left school to run it full time. My parents thought I was throwing my life away. They didn't know I'd already signed my first 45 clients and was pulling in $6,800 a month in recurring revenue. By 2021, Greenleaf had 700 clients and was doing $155,000 a month. By 2022, 2,800 clients and $520,000 a month. By 2023, we had 7,400 clients across 8 states and were generating $1.6 million a month, roughly $19 million a year. I had a team of 22 employees, including a COO with prior experience at a Fortune 500 distributor, a head of partnerships who'd scaled 3 companies before mine, and a client success team of 11 who handled onboarding and managed every account personally. We had 2 warehouse facilities, a fleet of refrigerated trucks, and contracts with regional suppliers that gave our restaurant clients pricing they couldn't get anywhere else. In January 2024, after our Series B funding round, Greenleaf was valued at $71 million. I was 26 years old, and my family still thought I answered phones. But while Victoria wore her designer outfits to family dinners, I kept showing up in jeans and t-shirts. I kept my East Atlanta apartment. I kept my Civic. I worked from home most days, and whenever family asked what I did for a living, I said I worked in customer service. Technically true, I served 7,400 customers. I also owned the entire company. I needed to know something. If I never succeeded, would they still love me? Would they value me just for being Camille? The answer had always been obvious. But Victoria's text made it crystal clear. The Georgia Governor's Business Awards had been running for 12 years, honoring young entrepreneurs in the state who were creating jobs and driving innovation. The Under 30 division was especially prestigious. Out of hundreds of nominations, only 5 winners were chosen each year. One of my investors, a venture capitalist who served on 4 company boards and had the governor's personal number, had nominated me. When I won, I had originally planned to stay quiet about it. Go to the ceremony, accept the award, let it fade into the background. But things changed, so let me just make sure we're all tracking this. Camille built a $71 million company from scratch, while her family thought she was answering phones for a living. Her parents refinanced their house for her sister's wedding, and then the sister uninvited her because she thought Camille would be too embarrassing to have around the Whitfield family. A Honda Civic and a small apartment were apparently enough to get cut from your own sister's wedding. Meanwhile, Camille is sitting on a company worth more than the Whitfield family's entire portfolio of medical practices. She just hadn't told anyone. And now, the same night as that $310,000 wedding, there's a governor's award ceremony with her name on the first place trophy. The community was absolutely losing it at this point. Let's see what happened next. Update 1. Posted 2 weeks later. Update: my parents called me a dropout. Then, the governor called my name on the same night as my sister's wedding. Here's everything that happened. All right, a lot of you wanted the full update, so here it is. Quick recap for the new people. I'm the family disappointment who secretly built a $71 million distribution company while my family thought I answered phones. My sister uninvited me from her wedding because I'd embarrass her in front of the rich in-laws. The governor's business awards happened to fall on the same night. Here's how that went. The awards night. The Ritz-Carlton in Savannah hosted the ceremony. Black tie, 450 attendees. Live streamed on multiple platforms. Bloomberg was covering it. Full press team from the Georgia Business Journal. Every major CEO and founder in the state was in that room. I bought a $6,500 custom gown. Midnight blue. Got the full treatment from a styling team that had worked Atlanta Fashion Week. Shoes that cost more than my monthly rent. That night when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Owen Beck was my date for the evening, founder of a hospitality group that had just been acquired for $2.4 billion. We'd been friends since meeting at a founders conference in Chicago. When I told him about my sister's situation, he'd volunteered to come with me immediately. Family that dismisses you doesn't deserve you, he said plainly. Let's make sure your success is impossible to ignore. The ceremony started at 7 p.m. The exact same time Victoria's wedding ceremony began at the Piedmont Grand, 250 miles north in Atlanta. Governor Alan Mitchell gave the opening remarks. The Under 30 Awards were the main event of the evening. Winners announced in reverse order from 5th to 1st, with increasing fanfare for each one. I sat at a front table with Owen, my COO Daniel, and 2 of my early investors. The governor returned to the podium for the final award. Our top Under 30 award winner this year exemplifies the kind of innovation Georgia needs, he said. In just 4 years, she has created 22 well-paying jobs in Savannah, built a company that services over 7,400 small food businesses across 8 states, generates over $19 million in annual revenue, and is valued at $71 million. The massive screens on both sides of the stage displayed images of Greenleaf Supply, testimonials from restaurant owners, growth charts showing the trajectory from 0 to 7,400 clients, photos of our warehouse operations and delivery fleet. She is a first-generation college student who left school to pursue her vision, taught herself the distribution industry from the ground up, and at just 26 years old, she has built something that is changing how small restaurants operate across the Southeast. The room was silent, everyone hanging on every word. Please welcome to the stage Camille Reyes, founder and CEO of Greenleaf Supply. I stood up. Owen squeezed my hand. I walked to the stage in my $6,500 dress and $900 shoes, shook hands with the governor of Georgia, and he placed a crystal trophy in my hands as the room erupted. "Camille," the governor said into the microphone, "tell us what drove you to build Greenleaf." I took the microphone and looked out at 450 of the most influential people in Georgia business. "I saw that small restaurant owners weren't getting the support they needed," I said. "They couldn't access the same quality ingredients and pricing that the big chains could. I wanted to change that, make quality accessible to everyone, not just the places with massive budgets." "And you left college to pursue this?" "I did. It was the hardest decision of my life. My family didn't understand." The audience chuckled. They thought I was throwing away my future. Turns out I was building it. The governor leaned in. "What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who don't have family support?" "Build it anyway," I said firmly. "When you succeed, the people who truly love you will celebrate. And if they don't, then you've built something even more important, your independence." The applause was louder this time. The governor posed for photos with me, and professional photographers captured the moment from every angle. Within minutes, Bloomberg shared the images on social media. The caption, "Camille Reyes, 26, receives the prestigious Governor's Under 30 CEO Award for building a $71 million company that's transforming how small restaurants access wholesale ingredients." I was trending on social media while Victoria was saying her vows at the Piedmont Grand. The Bloomberg post got 42,000 likes in the first hour. Comments from journalists, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. Shares from major industry accounts. I put my phone away and focused on the evening. Spoke with reporters who wanted interviews. Networked with CEOs who wanted to discuss Greenleaf's expansion strategy. Posed for more pictures with Owen, my team, and the other award winners. At 10 p.m. during the reception, I finally checked my phone. 127 unread messages. My old college roommate. "You're on Bloomberg. What is happening right now?" My former study group. People I hadn't spoken to in years, all expressing shock and congratulations, then buried underneath the avalanche, the ones I'd been expecting. Mom, timestamped 7:47 p.m. "Camille, I'm seeing pictures of you with the governor. Is this real? Call me, please." Dad, timestamped 8:15 p.m. "We need to talk about what we're seeing online." Victoria, timestamped 9:03 p.m. "How come you never told us? My wedding guests are all on their phones looking at your Bloomberg feature. You did this on purpose. How could you?" I set my phone down without responding. Owen saw my expression. "Family? Family. You all right?" "Better than all right," I said. "For the first time in my life, I don't need their approval." The fallout. By midnight, the Bloomberg piece had been shared over 180,000 times. Pictures of me and the governor were everywhere. Business publications were requesting interviews. Investment firms were emailing about Series C discussions. Greenleaf's website traffic spiked 740% in a single day. Our partnerships team was completely overwhelmed with inbound requests from restaurant owners across 6 new states who wanted to sign up. And the Georgia business community was small, tight-knit, connected. Everybody knew everybody. And now everybody knew that Victoria Whitfield had uninvited her own sister from the wedding, and that sister had just been honored by the governor for building a $71 million company. The story spread through country clubs, charity boards, and executive dinners faster than any press release could have managed. People who'd been at Victoria's wedding were going home and Googling my name. People who'd never heard of me were reading the Bloomberg piece and connecting the dots. The news reached Preston's parents within 48 hours. The Georgia business community was small and connected. Everyone knew everyone. And now everyone knew that Victoria Whitfield had uninvited her own sister from the wedding, and that sister had just been honored by the governor for building a $71 million company. Victoria called me Sunday afternoon, 2 days after the wedding. I was in my apartment still wearing my Greenleaf t-shirt and sweatpants, on a Zoom call with my partnerships team discussing how to prioritize the flood of new restaurant signups. I let it ring. She called again. I declined. She texted, "We need to talk, please." I typed back, "You didn't invite me to your wedding because I'd make you look bad? What else is there to discuss?" I didn't know. You never asked, so you didn't know. You made an assumption. Please, Camille. The Bloomberg piece was seen by Preston's parents. They want to know why you weren't at the wedding. They think we're fighting. This is hurting our reputation. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed, "Not my problem. Enjoy your marriage." Mom called an hour later. I answered out of curiosity. "Camille? It's Linda Reyes." "Hi, Mom." "Don't hi, Mom me. Bloomberg, the governor, a $71 million company, and you hid it from us. You never asked what I actually did for work. You said customer service. I do customer service. I serve 7,400 customers. I also own the company." Silence on the other end. "Why didn't you tell us?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Would you have believed me? If I'd told you 4 years ago that I left school to start a business, would you have supported me? Or would you have told me I was wasting my life?" More silence. "You have to understand, Camille. We were worried. You left school. You lived in that tiny apartment. You never seemed to have money. I was reinvesting everything back into the business. That's how startups work." "We didn't know that. You never explained." "I shouldn't have to explain myself to earn basic respect from my own family." I kept my voice steady but firm. "You've spent 4 years treating me like a failure, dismissing my work, making comparisons to Victoria every chance you got. Victoria wasn't invited to speak at a governor's ceremony, Mom. Victoria uninvited me from her wedding because I would embarrass her. She didn't mean it like that. That's exactly what she meant. And you know what? She was right to be worried, just not for the reason she thought. I serve 7,400 customers. I also own the company." That line is absolutely devastating. And the mom's reaction? "You hid it from us." Like it's Camille's fault that nobody in this family ever asked a single real question about her life. 4 years. 4 years of just assuming their daughter was a failure because she didn't have the right title or the right zip code. Meanwhile, she's building an empire in her sweatpants. And now Victoria's in-laws are asking why the sister who just got honored by the governor wasn't at the wedding. And suddenly it's a reputation crisis. The irony could not be thicker. The community was absolutely roaring at this point. Everybody wanted the final chapter, and Camille delivered. Let's finish this. Final update. Posted 3 months after original final update. They called me a dropout for 4 years. Then, the governor gave me an award, Bloomberg put me on blast, and my sister's marriage collapsed under the weight of her own decision. Last update, Reddit. Here's the ending. If you're new, go read the other posts first. Short version. Family treated me like a failure for 4 years while I secretly built a $71 million company. Sister uninvited me from her wedding. Governor's award ceremony happened the same night. Bloomberg went viral. Family lost their minds. Now here's everything since. Mom shows up. The Sunday after the ceremony, Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. My building had a security code and she didn't have it, so somebody must have let her in. I thought about closing the door but invited her in instead. The apartment felt smaller with her in it. She looked around at my furniture, my tiny kitchen, my wall of photos from trips and team events. "This is where you've been living for 4 years?" "Yes." "While you were building a $71 million company?" "While I was reinvesting every dollar back into growth?" "Yes." She sat on my couch. "Your father and I feel awful. We didn't know. You didn't ask." "Mom, what do you want?" I asked, leaning against my kitchen counter. "Why are you here?" "I want to understand." "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I needed to know if you loved me without the success. If I would be valued just for being Camille, not CEO Camille, not award-winning Camille, just me." "Of course we love you." "Do you?" "Because for 4 years you've treated me like a disappointment. You've praised Victoria nonstop while brushing off everything I did. You introduced me as my younger daughter who does various things, while Victoria got my daughter the consulting director." Her face crumpled slightly. "I didn't realize. You didn't care enough to look deeper. That's why you didn't realize. You saw what you wanted to see. A dropout who struggled. You never considered the possibility that I left for a real reason." "What was the reason?" "I built something that couldn't wait. Every day I spent in class was a day my competitors gained ground. I had clients ready to pay for my service. Investors ready to back me. My window was closing. So I walked away from school, and I've been building ever since. And you've held it against me the entire time. She looked down at her hands. Your father refinanced the house for Victoria's wedding. We couldn't have helped you financially, even if we'd known. I don't want money, Mom. I can cover anything I need on my own. I'm not upset about the money. I'm upset because you valued Victoria's happiness enough to refinance your home, but you couldn't be bothered to understand what I was building. That's the difference. She was quiet for a long time. What do you want from us, Camille? How do we make this right? You understand that you can't undo 4 years of dismissiveness with one conversation. You understand that your love felt conditional on me meeting your definition of success. And you understand that I don't need your approval anymore. I've built a life without it. She paused, changed her mind about whatever she was going to say, and then said quietly, "That's fair. I can see that now. And I'm sorry." It was the first sincere apology she'd ever given me. I need time, Mom, to figure out what kind of relationship we can have going forward. One that's based on who I actually am, not who you wished I was. How long? I don't know. Months, maybe longer. She looked stunned. Victoria's marriage is already strained because of all this. Preston's family is furious about her decision. She barely talks to us. And now you. Victoria made a choice that backfired. I'm not responsible for fixing that. She's your sister. She uninvited me from her wedding. She said I'd embarrass her. Mom, that's not sisterly love. That's contempt. Mom got to her feet slowly. I should go. Yeah. At the door, she turned back. Your father wants to see you. Would you be open to dinner sometime? Eventually. Not yet. When? When I'm ready. When I trust that you actually want to see me and aren't just managing the situation. She left. I closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a slow breath. My phone buzzed. Owen had texted, "Saw your mom's car leaving your building. You all right?" He'd been keeping an eye on things since the family started showing up unannounced. I'm all right. Held my ground. Good. You deserve better. Don't settle for less. I smiled at the phone. Chosen family is frequently better than the one you're born into. Preston calls. 3 weeks after the wedding, Preston Whitfield called me directly. I almost didn't answer. This is Preston Grant. Camille. We haven't formally met. I know who you are. I'm calling to apologize for the wedding situation. Victoria was under a lot of stress from the planning and pressure from both families to make everything perfect. Preston, I don't care about the excuses. Your wife uninvited me from her wedding because she thought I'd embarrass her. That's not stress. That's a judgment call. That's her actual opinion of me. She didn't know about your company. That's exactly the point. None of you did, because none of you asked. You all saw what you wanted to see. A dropout. A failure. Someone beneath you. Now that I'm useful, suddenly I matter. Silence. My mother would like to invite you to lunch, he said finally. She sits on the board of several charitable organizations that could benefit from partnerships with Greenleaf. She'd love to discuss possible collaborations. Tell your mother I appreciate the interest, but Greenleaf has other priorities. I'm not interested in partnering with people who only value me for what I can do for them. Camille, please be reasonable. I'm being entirely reasonable. I hung up. 10 minutes later, Victoria texted, "Please talk to me. Preston's family is upset. His mother is saying I'm an embarrassment who doesn't understand the importance of family connections. Please." I stared at the message. Now you know what it feels like to be called an embarrassment by your own family. Enjoy. She tried calling 14 more times that day. I blocked her number. The business keeps growing. Over the next 3 months, the transformation was total. Greenleaf closed a $26 million Series C funding round that valued the company at $97 million. We hired 16 more employees, opened a second distribution hub in Nashville, and signed partnership deals with 3 major regional food suppliers. I was invited to speak at a national food industry conference. 4,500 attendees. Standing room only. I talked about building a distribution network from nothing, about the gap in the market that nobody else had bothered to fill, and about what it takes to leave everything familiar behind and bet on yourself when nobody around you thinks you should. The Georgia Business Journal ran a feature. Camille Reyes, the dropout who built a distribution empire while her family wasn't watching. The article covered the family dynamics, Victoria's wedding, the governor's award timing. My PR person had warned me against being that open, but I insisted. People need to hear the real story, not the sanitized version. Thousands of people shared their own stories in response. Being undervalued, having to prove themselves to people who should have believed in them from the start, being dismissed by their own families. The response was overwhelming. Victoria's marriage falls apart. Meanwhile, Victoria's marriage was crumbling. The Whitfield family had made it clear that excluding me was a social miscalculation they wouldn't forget. Margaret Whitfield, Preston's mother, told Victoria directly, "Family connections matter more than you realize, and you destroyed one of the most important ones." 8 months after their $310,000 wedding, Victoria and Preston separated. The pressure from the Whitfield family and Preston's resentment over Victoria's decision made the marriage unsustainable. In July, Victoria sent me an 8-page handwritten letter via certified mail. She wrote about her regrets, how the wedding planning had consumed her, how desperate she'd been to impress the Whitfields, how she'd convinced herself that excluding me was protecting me from an awkward situation rather than protecting herself from embarrassment. "I was wrong," she wrote. "I was cruel. I was so obsessed with pleasing people who didn't matter that I destroyed my relationship with the person who should have mattered the most. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that I see what I did." I read the letter 3 times, sat with it for a week, then wrote back 1 page. "Thank you for the apology. I believe you're sorry. But sorry doesn't undo the damage or rebuild trust. I need time to see if we can build something based on mutual respect instead of obligation and guilt. Maybe we can get there someday. Not today." Months went by before I heard from her again. Dad, 6 months after the ceremony, I bought a house. Modern 3-bedroom in Ansley Park, $1.1 million. Home office, guest room, and a photography studio for the hobby I'd maintained my entire adult life. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the Midtown skyline. I paid cash. My parents found out through social media, where I'd posted a photo captioned "New Chapter" showing the living room view. Dad called. "Can we talk, Camille? In person?" "Why?" "Because I owe you an apology. A real one. And I can't do it over the phone." Something in his voice was different. Smaller. More honest. We met at a cafe near Ponce City. Dad showed up in jeans and a polo instead of his usual business casual. Looked older than I remembered. Ordered coffee, waited until we sat down, and said something I'd never heard him say before. "I failed you." I didn't say anything. Let him keep going. "I projected my own fears onto you. I built my career the traditional way. College, MBA, corporate ladder, then business ownership. When you left school, I saw it as irresponsibility, as failure, as wasting the opportunities I'd worked so hard to give you. I didn't waste anything. I know that now," he said, his hands gripping his coffee mug. "But I didn't know it then. And instead of asking you, instead of trusting you, I judged you. I did. And your mother did too. We treated you like you were failing. And Victoria like she was succeeding. And the whole time you were building something remarkable. You never noticed. We didn't look. That's worse." He looked me directly in the eyes. "I'm not asking for instant forgiveness. I'm not asking you to erase 4 years of dismissal. I'm just asking for the chance to build something new. A relationship based on who you actually are. Not who I thought you should be." Mom said the same thing. She told me you needed time. I'm here to tell you to take as much as you need. But don't shut the door completely. Let me prove I can be better. I studied him for signs of performance. Didn't find any. Just genuine regret from a man who finally realized what he'd missed. "All right," I said. 1 coffee a month, public place, 1 hour. We get to know each other properly. No assumptions. I'll take it. We've been meeting monthly since then. It's slow, it's careful, but it's honest. And we're building what might eventually become an actual father-daughter relationship, where everybody ended up Victoria and Preston finalized their separation in December. 8 months after their $310,000 wedding. Less than a year. The Whitfield family's pressure, and Preston's resentment over Victoria's calculated decision to exclude me made the whole thing unsustainable. Victoria moved back in with our parents, resigned from her consulting firm shortly after, said the stress was too much, but the timing told a different story. She's working through her choices and trying to figure out who she is without the Whitfield name and the director title and all the external validation she'd built her entire identity around. We've exchanged a few texts, short and polite. Nothing deep yet. I'm not ready for more than that. Maybe someday. Mom and I get coffee periodically. Our relationship is cautious and limited, but improving. She's learning to ask real questions about my work and actually listen to the answers instead of comparing everything to Victoria's career. Last quarter, Greenleaf's annual revenue hit $34 million. We're on pace to reach $42 million this year. The company is growing faster than my original projections ever accounted for. Last month, I was invited to speak at UGA's business school, the same university I dropped out of 6 years earlier. The dean introduced me as one of our most successful entrepreneurs who had the courage to leave before we could finish training her. The room laughed. I grinned. 480 students showed up. During the Q&A, a young woman raised her hand. How did you handle your family not supporting you? I thought about Victoria's text, Mom's dismissal, Dad's disappointment. 4 years of being treated like a failure while building something that would outlast all of their opinions about me. The people who truly love you will celebrate your success when they see it, I said. And if they don't, you've built something even more important than a company. You've built your independence. The room erupted. I spent 2 hours after the speech talking with dozens of students who wanted to share their own stories of unsupportive families and ask for advice on taking risks their parents didn't understand. The governor's trophy sits on my desk, not because it proves anything to anyone else, but because it reminds me that I built this on my own terms, without permission, without approval. And it was worth every single moment of being underestimated. And that is where this story ends, folks. What an absolute ride. The thing that gets me here is the simplicity of what destroyed Victoria's entire situation. She uninvited her own sister from a $310,000 wedding because she thought a Honda Civic and a small apartment would embarrass her in front of the Whitfields. That's it. That was the calculation. And the person she dismissed turned out to be more successful than anyone in that entire wedding venue. The governor was literally handing Camille a trophy while Victoria was cutting her cake. You cannot script that kind of timing. So if you enjoyed today's story, and I certainly enjoyed reading it to you, go ahead and give the video a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and all the relevant links are in the description below. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch. It really does mean a lot that you guys enjoy this content. So thank you once again, and having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.